What's up, Stitches? Welcome to the Ranney Knits podcast. This is a fiber podcast that primarily focuses on knitting. My name is Justine Ranney, and that's where we get Ranney Knits. Ranney Knits. It is Monday today, but I'm going to be talking about The Weekender. Check this thing out. The last time I podcasted was about 2 weeks ago, and I hadn't started this yet, so that's essentially what I've been doing since the last time I talked to you, is knitting this sweater. This is the Weekender sweater by Andrea Mallory, and I'm not exactly sure when this pattern came out, but it's been a little while because now there are something like 2,000 some project pages on Ravelry. So many people have knit this sweater. It wasn't really something that I had planned to knit until two of my Instagram friends decided to host a knit along for this sweater. And that is the Comfy Cozy Weekender Cal, K-A-L, knit along. And that is running until December 15th. So if you still want to join in on the knit along, just use hashtag Comfy Cozy Weekender Cal on Instagram and join us. I knit this in Malabrigo Rios in the Nimbus Gray colorway. I picked up 3 skeins a while back, and I didn't really have a plan for them. It was a going out of business sale, and there were 3 skeins of the same colorway, so I grabbed them. And it's gray. You know, I wasn't worried about finding a project that used 3 skeins of gray worsted weight yarn. This sweater took 5 skeins, so I had to pick up 2 more. And one of the ideas that I had, because I mentioned this last time, when I originally decided to knit this pattern, I was inspired by someone who had knit their Weekender in Malabrigo Rios, but had faded it, and it looked amazing, and I was very tempted to do that. But also, I had ordered 2 more skeins of the yarn, and I didn't want to wait. So I had poor impulse control when it came to this sweater, and just cast on before my 2 other skeins that I had ordered came in. So there is a lot of variation in this yarn, and even in the same dye lots, I had 2 skeins that were of the same dye lot. I had one that was a different dye lot, and then the 2 that I ordered came and they had no dye lots. So I was kind of all over the place when it came to dye lots, and so my skeins were a little bit inconsistent. And I think what the person who faded hers did was she actually planned it out and looked at all 5 skeins before she knit them. So she ordered her skeins from lightest to darkest and used that inconsistency between dye lots to her advantage to fade them. I was not that patient, so I had 3 skeins, and I ordered the other 2, and I sort of looked at them and I couldn't really tell. There's a lot of variation. I mean, especially if you look in the stockinette portion of these sleeves, there's quite a big difference between like the darks and the lights, and it was just hard for me to tell. So basically what I did was just knit the sweater without trying to fade it. The other 2 skeins that I ordered, when they came, I realized they were a little bit darker than the ones that I had started knitting with. So it kind of sort of ended up fading a tiny bit. I mean, it was completely unintentional because at that point I just decided to just knit it without worrying about trying to fade it. But you can almost, let's see, you can sort of see where this is where I was using the 3, and then here's where I brought in the other two. So these are the ones I originally had. These are the 3 skeins that I started with, and you can kind of see the line where I added in those ones that were on order. And I'm not mad about this at all, because where the sleeves start in this stockinette, it's just lighter because it's a different texture. And here is where that darker color sort of kind of starts coming in. I mean, maybe it's a little bit easier to see if you're looking at it as a whole. Chances are nobody's gonna notice, but that's just my little, I just kind of found that a little bit interesting. And that's the story of the yarn. This might be the first time that I've worked with Malabrigo. For sure the first time that I've worked with Malabrigo Rios. It is a 100% superwash merino. It's next to skin soft. It has no itch factor on my princess skin. If you haven't watched the podcast before, I'm always complaining about wool against my skin, even though I love wool and I love working with wool, but especially around my neck area and really my arms. I have very sensitive skin, and I wish I didn't, because I do love working with wool. I'm conflicted about superwash wool because the more I learn about it and the impact that the process to make superwash wool has on the environment, I am less inclined to work at it. I'm less inclined to work with it, but it has its benefits too. It's easy to wash. It's superwash. So it's one of those things that I'm not going to cut it completely out, but I'm also going to try to be using less superwash. That being said, I am very pleased with how this turned out, and I'm very happy with the yarn choices that I made. So let's talk about the construction of this sweater and not just the yarn. This is a bottom-up sweater, and the body is knit in reverse stockinette stitch. It's got a seam, a faux seam, a slip stitch seam going up the front and the back. The only difference between the front and the back is when you start from the bottom, you knit the back ribbing a little bit longer than the front ribbing, but then from then on it's essentially the same. You do knit in the round going up until you separate for the sleeves, and then you knit the front piece and the back piece, and you seam the shoulders. It is a drop shoulder construction. Ta-ta, and then the sleeves are knit in stockinette, or at least I think they're supposed to be knit in stockinette. I'm 99% sure that I did this the right way. As far as pattern modifications, the only thing I did was knit the sleeves about 1.5 inches longer, both because I have slightly longer arms and I like my sleeves to cover my hands a little bit. But yeah, it's got quite a bit of positive ease. I haven't measured this. I meant to measure it and compare it to the schematics on the pattern. I haven't done that yet, but it looks fairly close to the photos on the pattern. So the sleeves, and I've mentioned this on an Instagram post, I got to the point where I was going to pick up and knit the sleeves, and I could not tell if I was supposed to knit them in reverse stockinette or stockinette. For some reason I read the directions a billion times, and this is what happens to me in test knits. I start doubting myself and second guessing myself, and I get really confused, and I email the designer like, I think there's something wrong in this pattern, and they're like, no, you're just not reading it right. It's happened to me multiple times to the point where I'm not sure if I want to do test knits anymore, because that's embarrassing. They probably appreciate someone who is going to, you know, just like point something out rather than just think that it's the tester's mistake and they're just not reading the pattern right. If I were a designer, I would want my testers to, you know, tell me any little thing, because maybe it's just confusing and it's could be written differently, but I'm not a designer. I don't need to worry about that. And if I don't want to, I don't have to do test knits. So the sleeves, even looking at the pattern photos, I was second guessing myself. Like, is that like the knit side or is that the purl side? I don't know why. I decided to do the right way stockinette so that the knit side was facing, and I am very happy with that decision because I think that little contrast, I'm doing this because I think that little contrast between this is the knit side and this is the purl side, I think that's pretty interesting and I like it. Test the weekender. Even though I have only worn this sweater for a day or two, I know without a doubt it is my most wearable sweater. I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but this is a style and silhouette that I wear all the time. 9 months out of the year I am in sort of a oversized sweatshirt or t-shirt that's long sleeved and kind of has a more relaxed collar and a lot of positive ease. And that never really occurred to me that I should make a sweater in that same style so that I wear it all the time. Because I love all of the sweaters that I've made. Even though some of them have been more successful than others, I love them all because, you know, there's memories wrapped up in there. It's something that I've made. Each piece is unique, and I do regularly wear most of them. Some of them don't get so much wear, but I do make an effort to wear all of my sweaters. If you're new, I've been on this sweater knitting kick for the last year, a little over a year now. I started knitting sweaters August of last year, and I knit 3 in 2017, was it 3? Something like that. But in 2018 I am up to, this will be my 11th sweater that I've knit in 2018. I have quite a sweater stash now, and so I do wear them, but a lot of them are ones that I won't just like throw on and wear for kicks. I won't just wear it around my apartment. Most of them are sweaters that I will only wear if I'm going somewhere where I know there will be other yarny knitty people, or if I'm going to, you know, like go hang out with friends or something. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that I don't want to hand wash them all the time. I would never machine wash any of my sweaters. I would never machine wash most of my knits. I have machine washed socks before, but socks that I don't really care about, and one time it was on accident and then they came out okay, so I just started machine washing them. But sweaters, I would hand wash all of them, so I don't want to be doing like so much hand washing every week. So most of my sweaters, what I'm getting at is most of my sweaters are like occasion wear. Occasion wear, you know, for when you want to go somewhere fancy and you need a fancy sweater. But this one is so comfortable and so wearable, and I am very, very pleased with how it turned out and how wearable it is. It's got a nice drape to it, it is very comfortable, and I'm super pleased with it. So again, Comfy Cozy Weekender Cal. Use the hashtag on Instagram if you feel like knitting a weekender in the next month or two. You have until December 15th, so you've got time. Yeah, it is excellent. It's an excellent sweater, and I highly recommend the pattern. So when I knit the Tecumseh earlier this month, I was kind of putting a little bit of pressure on myself to see how quickly I could get that done. It was a sample knit, and I wanted to make sure that I got it all done, and I wasn't really worried about burning out on it. I just thought it would be nice for the dyer to get it in her hands as fast as possible, and I kind of just wanted to see if I could do it and see how fast I could knit that sweater. But there was a little bit of pressure on me, and it took a fraction of the joy out of knitting it. I still enjoyed it, and I do still want to knit another Tecumseh for myself, but it wasn't always 100% fun. So when I started this one, I thought it was just going to be more of a relaxed knit, and I wasn't really going to worry about finishing it in any amount of time. So it really didn't feel that rushed, and even though this one took me, I can't really remember exactly how many days it was a little bit longer than it took to knit the Tecumseh. But it did not feel like I was like working on this very much at all. And it was worsted weight, so that helps. But it was just fun. I just enjoyed every step of the way and had a great time with it. So that's always a good thing when you can say, like, I really just enjoyed knitting this sweater. Was it yesterday? No, Saturday? No. Yeah, it was yesterday. I was clipping all the ends off after I blocked it, and I was kind of just a little bit sad. It was kind of the same way that I felt about after finishing my Alyeska sweater. Just a little bit, like, not ready for it to be done. I don't know. I get maybe a tiny bit unhealthily attached to things. I could work on that, but, and there, you know, it helps that I was excited to wear this, and so this was kind of that perfect balance between a process knit and a project knit. Like, I enjoyed the process of 100%, and the product is perfect. I love having a hand knit that I can wear all the time. That's not going to stop me from knitting the all over colorwork pieces and the pieces that aren't necessarily the most practical things for everyday wear, but I do enjoy a basic gray sweater, and I can't wait to wear this all the time. So essentially that's what I've been working on the past 2 weeks. I am a monogamous knitter at heart. I occasionally go a little crazy with castanitis and end up with a bunch of mostly accessory pieces that I may never finish, who knows. But yeah, as far as projects, for the most part, I really just enjoy working on one project at a time. So, that being said, I don't know if you've noticed, but I have all these Stitch and Story kits behind me that I am expected to knit on. So I'm a brand representative for a company called Stitch and Story, and they make knitting kits mostly geared towards beginner knitters. The majority of their kits use 12 millimeter needles and pretty bulky yarn, chunky yarn. So I do receive kits from them, and I'm expected to knit them every month. So for the most part, they're fairly easy, quick knits. And I really do enjoy working with them. So this is one of them. This is the reversible ski beanie, and it is in the teal and gray colors. This hat took me quite a bit longer than it should have because I decided to be a smarty pants and knit this in the round, even though all of their patterns are knit on straight needles. Yeah. So I knit this entire hat in the round and then realized it was completely wrong because I knit the flat instructions in the round. So I had the purl side on the wrong side, and it actually didn't look that bad. Like, it kind of looked cool. I did not hate it, and if it was just for me, I probably would have just left it. But because they wanted photographs of this hat, I figured I probably should knit it according to the instructions. So I re-knit it flat. And yeah. I also was not sure about having all of this extra space. If you've been with me from the very beginning, my first episode was a big old hat parade, and I had one that I call my introvert hat because I can wear it like this. So when I saw this one, I thought, I don't know if that's gonna work for me, but it actually, it fits really well. It must be like the chunky, it must be that chunky yarn. It's got enough structure that it kind of just like fits on my head, and I don't feel like I'm wearing a ridiculously huge hat. So there's that. So that's that. It is reversible if you wanted to wear it like this. My seaming isn't my seaming is subpar. I tried, and on one side it looks okay, but I have to pick which side I like better before I seam, because there's no way that I'm gonna make an invisible seam on both sides. So I mean, you could just wear this with the seam sticking out if you wanted it to be reversible all the time. I'm kind of thinking about putting a pom-pom on this. I am looking for some faux fur pom-poms for some hats, and I think that would look pretty good on this. So that's the hat. The other knit project that I've been working on are, I haven't showed these before. I started these in July. These are some scrappy socks that, in my defense, I started these when I was in Alaska and just had, we have a random box of yarn up there that is, it's got some nice stuff in it. It's got a lot of acrylic, and it's got a lot of stuff that mainly was brought up there when we were all first starting to learn to knit. So the options are limited, and there were just some bits and pieces of scraps, and so all I wanted to do was cast on a pair of socks, so that's what I did. So I picked these back up once I finished my weekender sweater, mostly because I wanted the needles back. I was at that point where I was too far, I think I was about here, and I was just too far into them to want to just take the needles off. I was just using scraps, so I couldn't justify, like, I didn't even want to rip back the yarn to save the yarn, so I knew if I took the needles off I would just end up throwing these out, and it was just, it wasn't that much work, but I don't like to throw things away. I don't like to waste things. I am fine ripping out all my work. I will waste my time. That's fine. I guess I value the yarn more than I value my time, because if something's not right, I don't mind reworking it. But even though this was just bits and pieces of little scraps, I didn't want to just throw it away. So I decided to keep going, and I am now on the heel. I just started the heel for this one. I'm doing a fish lips kiss heel, and I'm just gonna make these short socks, so they're close to being done, and hopefully I will finish these. I'm thinking about putting some more attractive colors on the cuff, so when they poke out they'll look kind of nice, and if I'm wearing these, hopefully I won't have to take my shoes off. And yeah, they're socks. Like, it doesn't matter. They'll be wearable. And maybe that will be more practical, because I've noticed with a lot of my socks, I don't want to wear them because they're so nice that I want to baby them, and I don't have a whole lot of hand-knitted socks. I think at one point I said that I don't like wearing hand-knitted socks, but that may have been in the summertime when it was worn, because now that the weather is cooling down, I'm wearing my hand-knitted socks a lot more. So that's that. So another thing I did was this little weaving. I bought a frame loom. I bought a frame loom a little while ago, and I've been knitting. I've been weaving some mug rugs and some other little things. This is my first little wall hanging. It's on my Stitch and Story needle. I've been meaning to go out and look for some driftwood to hang this with, but I haven't been to the beach yet, so right now it's just my cool looking beard. But weaving's fun. If you haven't tried it, you should definitely. You can find frame looms that are relatively inexpensive. You could even make your own frame loom, and it's a great way to use up little bits and pieces of yarn. Like, I originally bought my loom because I had all this awesome Stitch and Story yarn that I didn't want to throw away, because, like I said, I hate wasting stuff. I can't even, I mean, little pieces, little bits and balls. I have, that's what these socks are, just little teeny tiny pieces that I can't throw away. So this is what's coming of my little scraps of Stitch and Story yarn, and it's been really fun. I'm still not great at it. I've picked up some techniques pretty well. My tension is kind of all over the place, and I've noticed as I keep weaving, my work gets a little bit smaller and smaller. It kind of tapers in as I'm putting more tension on the, oh gosh, warp, weft, I think it's a warp, but I don't know. But I know that'll just, like, yeah, I just have to practice in order to do, I know that just comes with practice to get more even, but this has been fun so far. I like playing with colors and shapes and textures, so it's a good thing to do. Finally, I have some stash acquisitions, which is not something that I usually have. I've been on a little bit of a yarn diet that I've been slowly weaning myself off of now, because I feel like I've been pretty darn good about using stash this last year, and I still have a lot of yarn, but I'm having a little bit more trouble coming up with combinations from stash, especially to knit sweaters. I don't have a lot of sweater quantities of yarn. So I started kind of like not being so strict with myself when it comes to buying yarn. So I participated in FiberShare for the first time, and if you haven't heard of it, FiberShare is a, what do you call it? It's a, so the way FiberShare works is you sign up and they match you with two people. You get matched with one person who you send yarn to and one person who sends yarn to you. So it's just a way of, you know, meeting new people in the fiber community and sharing your love of yarn and fiber. So I participated in the knitting one because that's what I do. And I was matched with the loveliest partner. Her Instagram handle is Gray Pro Goods, and she does a lot of sample knitting. She's knit a lot of Caitlin Hunter patterns, and she's just a very lovely person. So she sent me all kinds of goodies. She sample knits for House of a la Mode quite a bit. So she sent me this cream and green speckled skein of awesomeness. I'm super excited about this because I've been wanting to knit with House of a la Mode. It's a really fun hand-dyed company. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this, but I love it. I also got a skein of Madeline Tosh. But the big thing that I was really excited about was this bag that she made. She has an Etsy shop. It is Gray Pearl Goods, and she makes these incredible project bags. So there's her little Gray Pearl Goods logo. So I think this might be her largest size bag. I'm not exactly sure. I know currently in her shop she doesn't have any in stock, but she's working on a shop update sometime soon. But it's got this cool dragon scale, feathers, scales. I'm not exactly sure what this pattern is, but awesome drawstring, leather handle, so you can walk around and knit. And this is the first proper project size bag that I've owned, so I was really excited to open this. It was so kind and thoughtful, and it's just like classic beautiful bag. It's got a little pocket on the inside, and it's really, there's a lot of attention to detail in this bag, and I really appreciated that she sent it to me. I feel like every episode I have to take back something I said on previous episodes. So I think it was last episode I said I don't take my knitting out with me very often. It's just I tend to be a little bit too distracted to knit when I'm in public because one, I'm a distracted person, two, I'm an introvert, and being around other people sometimes like can be very overwhelming. So because I tend to be pretty introverted, when I'm around other people, a lot of my energy has to go into like focusing on them and my surroundings, so that kind of like takes away any enjoyment I get out of knitting or working on a project in public. So on Friday I was very close to finishing this sweater. I had a bit to go. I had a bit left to go on the sleeve, and my boyfriend was getting LASIK eye surgery that day, so I wanted to bring a project because I knew I was going to be sitting in a waiting room for a while, and I wouldn't have brought my sweater I probably would have brought a pair of socks, and honestly I probably wouldn't have worked on them because, like I said, sometimes just like focusing on knitting is not possible even when I'm just sitting in a waiting room. But I did bring this bag because I was really excited. I had just received it in the mail, and so I wanted to try it out, so I put my sweater in it, and I was just hanging out in the waiting room knitting on my sweater, and the people there, the staff members there, were so kind. I don't have a lot of experiences like knitting in public and people talking to me about it. I don't know if I mean, like I said, I don't knit in public a lot, but even when I do, people don't come up to me and talk to me, and that's probably because I'm mostly knitting in parks and places that are like a little bit more open, and it's a little bit more awkward to like approach someone. But this was just in a small office, and the receptionists were super kind. The doctor's assistants were very kind. You know, they all wanted to like know what I was doing, know what I was making. They complimented the sweater. One girl offered to buy it from me. So it was like a good experience, and it was really fun, and maybe I will try to knit in public a little more often. I'm so comfortable knitting on my couch that it's hard to decide to pick up and move somewhere else. And the LASIK surgery went very well too, so we're happy about that. I'm glad I didn't have to do it, because that sounds awful. That sounds like a nightmare. But he's happy about it. He's glad that he can see, and he doesn't have to wear glasses anymore. So this feels like a really long stash acquisition segment, and that's probably because I don't usually do stash acquisitions, so much so that I can't even say it. Stash acquisitions. But there was a little festival happening last week, 2 weeks ago. It was called Rhinebeck. I don't know if you're familiar, and I did not attend. And there was, I think if I had to boil it down, I was 1 part FOMO, fear of missing out, but 2 parts JOMO, joy of missing out, because while I am loving watching all the Rhinebeck vlogs and seeing all the Rhinebeck meetups, if I'm honest with myself, that probably wouldn't have been my thing. It sounds like it was crowded and crazy, and like I said, I am pretty introverted, so a giant festival full of people probably would have been a little bit too overwhelming. I still would have liked to have gone, and I still one day would like to go. I think if I had enough people around me who I knew and I trusted and knew me and knew what I was going to be like, I'm thinking like very close friends and family members, that I could go and have a pretty good time. It sounds like a really incredible experience to be surrounded by that many people who share your passion for yarn and knitting and crochet and all the other things. But lucky for me, there was a group of makers who decided to do a Not Rhinebeck festival online. So one of the participants of the Not Rhinebeck festival was Laura of Tiny Human Knits. So here's her card, and in addition to dyeing yarn, she also has a podcast, Tiny Human Knits Podcast. You should go check that out. So she had been posting her colorways that were going to come out for the Not Rhinebeck festival for quite a while, and I fell in love with this combination I have no idea, well, no, that's not true. I have a little bit of an idea of what I want to do with this. Hohi Locatelli has been teasing us with her latest design. I think it's called the Spectre pullover, and it's a faded pullover knit in reverse stockinette with some, it kind of looks very similar to the Weekender with the slip stitch with the slip stitch detail, but it's got slip stitches all over the place, and I'm kind of thinking that this would be an amazing set. I must have been influenced by all the people on Instagram who have been obsessed with mustard, and Kelly of Knitbrooks calls it gross yellow. There's not really any gross yellow. These are more of like mustard and a little bit, I don't know. I haven't worked with yellow a lot, so I don't have a lot of words for yellow colors. I'm excited to have a fade set that is like meant to be a fade. I think there was one more skein that was kind of like part of this. This wasn't a set I bought, you know, I just had to pick and choose these individually, but they were dyed to work really well together. And there was one more that went in between these two that was like a little bit lighter than this one, I think. But I missed out on that one, but I think these are going to work really, really well together. So now I'm playing the game of guessing how long I've been talking to the camera without recording. So, just gonna guess, but I think I was at the point where I was saying, so I'm super happy to have been able to participate in a small way in an online fiber festival without the stress of crowds and traveling and sleeping in an unfamiliar place. I think that's probably the worst part for me. And I'm absolutely not saying that I don't want to attend fiber festivals in the future. There's one in 2 weeks. November 10th is Yarn Revolution that's hosted. That is a local festival that I'm hoping to be able to attend, fingers crossed. I'd love to go to Knit City one day. I haven't talked about this yet because the plans are still tentative, but I'm thinking about attending Rhinebeck in 2019. That's this coming Rhinebeck. We'll see. It's still a little bit up in the air, but I think it's going to work out, and I'm going to get to go. So that would be very exciting if that worked out. And if you've ever been to Rhinebeck and you have any tips or things I should know, like I said, I'm just in the very first steps of planning that, but I think it might happen. So yeah, any advice on going to, did I say Rhinebeck? I meant Edinburgh. Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I don't remember which one I said. If you have been to Edinburgh and have any tips for me, I would really appreciate that. So that is knitting and stash acquisitions for me. I don't have a whole lot of plans for this week. This week isn't looking like we're going to be doing too much. It is Halloween weekend, and I have this tradition of putting together Halloween costumes and then never wearing them. So I've already maxed out one memory card, so I'm just going to cut this off here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a happy Halloween, and until next time, happy knitting. Bye!